Yo, you're watching the Screaming Fish here, people, and once again, I'm here for another video, but this time, once again, it is not a movie review. In fact, I'm actually going to do something that I've only really done once on this channel, that I haven't actually done for a while, and basically similar to what I did with Batman v Superman and Captain America Civil War a while back. I'll be pitching two comic movies against each other to see which is better, and now that both the second two DC EU movies have come out and everyone's shared their thoughts on both of them, and let's just say the reception for both these movies has been very divisive, I thought it would be a good time to pit Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, directed by Zack Snyder, and Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer, against each other, and pretty much see which is the better of the two. So without further ado, let's get started with Batman v Superman versus Suicide Squad. So, round one is characters. So, in Batman v Superman, our main characters are obviously Batman and Superman. One thing that is definitely a pro here is Ben Affleck as Batman. Like I have said many times before, Ben Affleck, in my opinion, pretty much embodies everything I love about Batman, from the suit, the voice, and his performance in general. I also think that that performance-wise, at least Henry Cavill does a pretty good job as Superman, and I really like Superman's suit in this movie. It's a lot more colourful than it was in Man of Steel. And both these characters had some pretty awesome scenes in this movie. However, my main complaint with the characterization in this movie is that there are a lot of scenes where Batman doesn't feel like Batman and Superman doesn't feel like Superman. For example, Batman literally kills people, which is something he rarely does in any of the previous films or the comics for that matter. And it's never really explained why he kills people without mercy. Yes, it is debatable in some scenes whether or not he killed someone, but in other scenes you can clearly see he actually kills someone. And pretty much everything I just said there can also be said for Superman. He would be helping people, and the next thing you know, he's just flies away without helping anyone else. I also don't like that this film does not give these characters any time to really talk and interact with each other, minus the third act of the film and that scene after the car chase and that scene in the party. Other than those scenes, there's literally no other scenes where Batman and Superman are actually interacting with each other outside of the fight. However, Suicide Squad, in my opinion, handles the characterization a lot better. We get to see the characters actually interact with each other in multiple scenes. For example, that scene in the bar is one of my favourite scenes in the movie because it really shows off the absolute best of the performances and has the most character depth. I also really like most of the characters in this movie. Will Smith as Deadshot, for example, is a really well-developed and interesting character, and I was able to get behind him and care for his character really easily. That's not forgetting Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is pretty much everything I wanted to see from her. I honestly felt like I was watching the Harley Quinn from the animated series, and Robbie's performance is phenomenal, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jai Courtney was really fun as really fun as Captain Boomerang, and he gave a great performance. However, I think the most engaging and most compelling was Jay Hernandez as El Diablo. His performance was really good, and like I said, he is the most compelling character next to Deadshot in the movie. I also think that all these characters were introduced in really cool and unique ways, and I love seeing Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship develop through flashbacks. So overall, as you can tell, I think Suicide Squad does a better job with characterization than Batman v Superman does. So obviously the winner is Suicide Squad. So now for round two is the villains. So first off, I would just like to say that I personally would say that both these movies have a lot of issues concerning their villains. For starters, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor in BVS. His performance is one of the most unbearable and annoying things I have ever seen in a movie. He was not enjoyable to watch on screen at all, and is by far the absolute worst part of Batman v Superman. As for the villains in Suicide Squad, I have mixed feelings about them. For starters, while I admittedly like Cara Delevingne as Enchantress, she came off as a really been-there-done-that villain. Her wanting revenge and building a superweapon to exact that revenge feels really been-there-done-that. However, the best of the villains we have had in the DCU so far is Jared Leto as the Joker. I think Jared Leto is doing something really cool and unique with the Joker. It's it's like a mix between Ledger's Joker and Nicholson's Joker, and the end result is brilliant, and he has some really cool moments. However, my complaint is that the Joker in Suicide Squad has no more than 10 minutes of screen time, which is really annoying because in the trailers it was like they were keeping it under wraps to surprise us, but no, he's barely in this movie. However, I think Suicide Squad does do an overall better job with its villains, performance-wise, because I, for one, found Eisenberg's Lex Luthor to be unbearable, and while as a villain, Enchantress wasn't that great, I liked Cara Delevingne's performance, and Jared Leto's Joker, despite his lack of screen time, is phenomenal, in my opinion, whenever he's on screen. So, again, the winner is Suicide Squad. So, round 3, the story. So, okay, I will admit that both these movies have issues story-wise, although I think that one has more issues than the other. The first third of Batman v Superman is actually pretty good. It perfectly establishes Batman's motivations for hating Superman, and it was pretty cool seeing what the people in that world actually think of Superman's actions and Superman as a hero, and there are some scenes that literally blew my mind. Unfortunately, as soon as the second and third acts kick in, we are introduced to an almost endless array of plot holes and things that don't make sense. For example, if Batman in that universe has been around for about 20 years, why is everyone acting like he has just shown up? And how does Lex Luthor actually know Superman's identity? Why does Batman kill people? That's never explained, and I'm still confused by the dream sequences even now, and I've watched the Ultimate Edition like twice. Why were they even in the movie, and what importance do they actually have to the story? They're never actually explained. I also think that this movie doesn't handle Wonder Woman very well either. She basically shows up and kicks some butt, and that's it. That's all she does in the movie. The thing that annoys me is that the movie has so little Batman v Superman that you would be surprised that it's actually, in fact, called Batman v Superman. And what of the story of Suicide Squad? Like I have already said, it introduces the characters in really cool and unique ways, and I really enjoyed the first 40 minutes of the movie because those 40 minutes were dedicated to developing the characters in the movie. And while I do think the story could use improvement creativity-wise, I overall found the story pretty easy to follow for the most part. The first two-thirds of Suicide Squad are really the best part of the movie, story-wise. However, I do think the film stumbles into the third act in a fairly unconvincing way. The characters that for the most part are basically supervillains being forced to work for the government, having a change of heart is convincing for some characters, like Deadshot, for example, but for others it doesn't make sense. Captain Boomerang, for example, cares about absolutely nobody but himself, but it's never really explained why he rejoins the squad to save the world in the third act. However, the third act is also where the plot holes start popping up. For example, Enchantress has her own army at that point, but for some reason, for the entirety of that third act, she doesn't even use her army on the squad. Where did they go? And the villain has a very obvious weakness that is never properly exploited throughout the film. However, I could only find enjoyment in the first third of Batman v Superman, whereas Suicide Squad's first two acts are pretty darn good, and despite the third act of Suicide Squad's plot holes, I still found enjoyment in Suicide Squad's third act. It was still fun to watch. So, as you can see, the winner once again is Suicide Squad. I rest my case. So, now for round 4, visuals and action. Now, there is no denying that Batman v Superman is visually stunning. The effects in this movie are amazing, and for the most part they were flawless. It's definitely more visually appealing than Suicide Squad, with some fantastic shots and set pieces that will leave you jaw-dropped. I also think that the movie does a pretty good job action-wise too. However, when it comes to action, the action sequences, the only action sequence I really enjoyed was the warehouse fight scene where Batman is fighting a bunch of Lex Luthor's goons, and it is phenomenal. And the inspiration from the Arkham games is clearly visible, and it is, in my opinion, the best Batman action sequences ever put on film. However, everything else action-wise is pretty poorly executed. For starters, the car chase with the Batmobile is basically people shooting at each other from cars, and Batman bulldozing cars with the Batmobile. And as for the actual Batman v Superman fight, it's pretty disappointing. It's basically all the shots from the trailers mixed into one 8-minute long scene that is basically people people talking for a couple of seconds and then they bash each other about like a couple of meatheads. That's about it. As for Suicide Squad, I do appreciate the practical element that's been added to the action sequences. It made them feel more realistic, and I will admit I did enjoy most of the action sequences in Suicide Squad. However, the film does suffer whenever CGI is around, and unfortunately the CGI in this film is mediocre at best. There's not as much CGI as there is practical effects, but still whenever the CGI is on screen, it's very obvious. The Enchantress's CGI animated brother, for example, goes from looking really cool to looking really cartoony, and unfortunately the CGI does affect the quality of some of the action sequences and makes them seem not real. But for the most part, the action is pretty good when there's no CGI in Suicide Squad. Overall, I think Batman v Superman is a visual spectacle. When it comes to effects, there is one and when it comes to action, there is one amazing Batman action sequence in the warehouse. And while Suicide Squad action sequences, for the most part, are pretty good and they're very realistic in my opinion, the CGI whenever on screen looks really cartoony and takes you away from the realistic approach they've gone with Suicide Squad's action. So the winner for this round is Batman v Superman. So now for the fifth and final round is music. I love the musical score for Batman v Superman. It's probably one of the best scores for a movie I've ever heard in a while, and not once did it feel too over the top, or too dramatic. However, Suicide Squad score is also pretty good, but it never actually gets a chance to fully flow, as the rest of the movie's soundtrack is basically the composer getting all his favourite songs and scattering them all over the movie, and some of the song choices are pretty weird. For example, when Eminem's Without Me comes on, at first you're like, oh yes, this song! But then after a second or two, you start to wonder, why is this song in this particular scene? And when I noticed this watching like 3 times, I noticed this when watching the Suicide Squad at least 3 times, and I did get a bit annoying, and it was because of some of the weird music choices that it felt some of it felt a bit out of place. However, I will admit I do like the songs chosen here. I'm a big fan of some of the songs, but I think it's just the scenes that they were put in, it didn't really fit, if that makes sense. So the winner for this round is, of course, Batman v Superman. So the overall winner of this versus match with 3 points is Suicide Squad, with Batman v Superman being 1 point away from a draw with 2 points. I also got to be honest that yes, both these movies have their problems, but if I had to watch one of them 1,000 times over, I would pick Suicide Squad, because I actually had a lot of fun watching it, and it was great seeing a light-hearted DC film for once. And yes, Batman v Superman has its moments, but to be honest, the only thing it really has going for it, besides its visuals and music, is the fact that it's setting up Justice League, and the two main cast members are playing 2 of the most iconic superheroes I've ever put on comic books. So overall, Suicide Squad is a better movie in my opinion, and yeah, I really like Suicide Squad, basically. So, guys, I do hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Facebook. And which do you think is better between Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I will indeed see you guys in the next one. Goodbye, guys.